We're recording, Maureen.
Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Maureen Meredith, and I work for the City of Austin Housing and Planning Department. I'm the Plan Amendment Case Manager for this case, NPA 2022-0023.01.sh. If you haven't done so already, please type your name in the chat box. And if you're associated with an organization, if you could include that as well. And I will use this as the sign-in sheet. Please mute your microphone if you're joining by phone. Please turn off your video if you are participating online to save bandwidth. And this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the Speak Up Austin website tomorrow morning. So the property, as you know, is located in the Windsor Park neighborhood planning area. Like I said, I'm the Plan Amendment Case Manager. Heather Chafin is the zoning case manager, and here's her contact information. I will repeat this slide at the end of the presentation as well, so if you don't get a chance to copy it now, you can get it at the end of the presentation. So the agenda tonight, I will go over basic case information, guidelines for group discussion, how to participate in this process, why is there a plan amendment application, what is a future land use map. I will go over the basic case information. Then Connor Kinney will do a presentation, and then we will open the floor to the questions and answers. So the property addresses are 5105, 5109, 5111, 5113, and 5115 Lancaster Court. It's approximately 0.7874 acres. The case number is NPA 2022-0023.01SH, and the SH signifies it as a Smart Housing Certified Project, which the SMART stands for Safe, Mixed Income, Accessible, Reasonably Priced, and Transit Oriented. Project name is 5107 through 5115 Lancaster Court. The request is to change the future land use map from multifamily residential and mixed use office to mixed use. The associated zoning case number is C14-2022-0018.sh. The zoning request is to change the zoning on the property from MF3, which is multifamily residence medium density, and NOMUNP, and that stands for Neighborhood Office Mixed Use Neighborhood Plan, to CSVNP, which is General Commercial Service Vertical Mixed Use Neighborhood Plan for a mixed use multifamily and office development. Property owners and applicants are Lancaster LLC, SEMIZI LLC, Lancaster Office 3 LLC, and Fayez Kazi. The agent is Connor Kinney from Capital A Housing. So tonight, please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time during this meeting. We ask you to postpone your general comments during the Q&A session. After staff and applicant presentations, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand symbol on the menu bar. Telephone participants will be able to speak during the Q&A session, and when we get to that point, we will call out the last four digits of your phone number. Attendees will be muted upon arrival and through the staff and applicant presentations. Then staff will open the floor to answer questions in the chat or by attendees raising their hands to speak. Similar questions may be grouped and answered together. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking for the sake of sound quality and clarity of conversation. If you're having connection issues, turn off your video until called upon to ask your question. As I mentioned earlier, this meeting is being recorded and it will be posted to the speakupaustin.org/MPA website tomorrow morning. You can email or call me or Heather with any questions or comments that you have. For written comments, we will add them to the staff case reports. You may have gotten the notice in the mail, or you will get it very soon for these cases that are scheduled for the June 28th Planning Commission hearing date and the July 28th City Council hearing date. If you wanted to have any comments added to staff case reports, if you could please send them to me and Heather as soon as you can. So why is there a plan amendment? Neighborhood plans are adopted by City Council as amendments to the Imagine Austin Comprehensive Plan. The city charter requires zoning changes to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Most neighborhood plan amendments are amendments to the plan's future land use map, also called the FLUM. And most NPAs have an associated zoning application. This map shows in blue the areas that have City Council approved neighborhood plans, most of which have a future land use map and also a document that has the vision and goals of the planning area, and a future land use map that looks like this, where the colors represent broad land uses. For example, yellow is single family, orange multifamily, reddish brown is mixed use office, and brown is mixed use. So this property has orange, which currently is on the FLUM as multifamily residential, and that maroon color is the mixed use office land use. And the request is for mixed use, which is the brown color land use. This chart shows how the zoning districts are typically found within each of these land use categories. This is an aerial photo that shows the property. The Google Maps screenshot that shows some of the surrounding uses. This is the future land use map again that shows the orange is multifamily residential, the maroonish color, the mixed use office, and of course the brown, which is the mixed use. Zoning map shows the existing zoning on the property and zoning around the subject tracts. This is the Imagine Austin Growth Concept Map. This is a zoomed in that shows the property in relation to the activity centers and corridors. So it is just on the edge of the Highland Mall Station Activity Center and just north of the Mueller Station Activity Center, and East 51st Street is a designated activity corridor. This shows the property in proximity to the public transportation. You see there's some public transportation along East 51st Street, Lancaster, Barbara Jordan Boulevard, and up on Cameron Road. And that ends my presentation. I will stop sharing and then Connor can start his presentation.
All right, are y'all seeing my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just to be fully transparent about kind of the difference between what we brought to y'all 2 months ago, I've just kind of gone through and struck through some things so that we can fully kind of tell the difference. So the main issue here is that we are shortening the list of properties that we're seeking the redesignation for by one, and then omitting entirely the property on Cloverdale. There was a little bit of confusion around that, and it just was making things overly complicated. So we really wanted to just kind of zoom in on this project and make it just about this project and not cross any wires. So the subject properties are now the 5 properties between 5107 and 5115 Lancaster Court. You'll also see here that we have deleted the reference to the, can you see my cursor? Can I get a yes or a no?
Yeah, we can. It looks like a little cross right now.
Great. Yeah. So we removed the designation for the Cloverdale properties so that, again, it's just the properties over on Lancaster, and it's one property short. So as a reminder, the 3 lots on the end are going to be owned and operated by Safe Alliance. The properties are under contract already with Safe Alliance, enforceable contract. It is going to be 100% very low income, affordable housing for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. There's a 24-hour, 24/7 secured entryway. Security is actually really important to Safe. to keep the residents safe. And so, you know, they don't want anybody, you know, kind of in and out. They don't want anybody loitering around. This is supposed to be a safe place. And then the support services are all also going to be provided on site. The first floor of the building is pretty much all kind of offices and support services for the residents there. So SAFE will have both 24/7 and ongoing presence on the site. It's really, we've just completed design and using a local firm, using something that I didn't know existed last year, which was trauma-informed design, and really making sure that it's not just kind of practically a safe place, but also is sensitive to kind of the needs and experiences of the folks who are going to be living there. It's things like, you know, we discovered that, you know, for our laundry room, we needed to make sure that instead of it being a room with the one door, that it was opposite the 24/7 front desk that was monitoring with the plexiglass windows, so that people who are in there doing their laundry see that they are being seen by somebody else. So a lot of interesting stuff like that. And then just again, getting rid of this last lot here towards the end, so that it is just the 5 lots. The green lots remain the Safe Alliance project. The 2 blue lots there are, what that is going to be the replacement for the Civilitude office across the street. That's the engineering firm that we're affiliated with. So essentially the guys who Amanda Swore represents, who I think came and represented at the April or April contact team meeting, perhaps, they own the entire block to the west, where they're seeking the light industrial PDA zoning for 90 feet of height and 80% impervious cover. They would not sell us the 5113 lot in the middle. They would only trade us for the lot, because this right here is our office. And so we traded lots with them so that we could complete the SAFE block and build the SAFE project there. And so the blue lots over here are going to be the new replacement Civilitude office, which is kind of necessary for the whole deal to work. Here's the aerial view. This is one lot too big. We're losing this one lot here on the bottom. Here it is in the context of the neighborhood. Over here, you'll see that zoomed in. All but the last 2 lots are already designated as mixed-use office, this category here, and the 2 lots down on the corner are designated for multifamily residential up to MF6. Here is the properties in the context of the core transit corridors, the bus stops. We gave SAFE a choice of about a dozen different sites, and this is the one that they strongly preferred due to its proximity to transit, to Parkland, to Miller, to the HEB. And then as well, they have their project down at Rathkeeper Village, which is down in the Miller neighborhood, and that's going to allow them some efficiency of services for delivery. So here's the current zoning. It's MF3 and neighborhood office. CSV is what we're proposing. This is in line with the other proposals that you've seen. Again, this whole block here is looking for the light industrial PDA zoning. The brown there is the rezoning that was approved, I guess, about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. God, time flies. And where all the current construction is going on. Here's like the Paco's lot. So you'll see just the entire 51st Street corridor is redeveloping in a pretty intense way here south of the creek. So why this zoning, why this land use category? The site, SAFE was pretty emphatic about wanting to do 60 units. They're a mixture of studios, 1s and 2s, primarily for single parents with kids who are fleeing abusive situations in their own homes. The closest equivalent multifamily zoning, MF5, only has 70% lot coverage, which would have made it impossible to achieve those 60 units, which is where the efficient delivery of services is for SAFE. I would, somewhat selfishly on behalf of SAFE, really encourage the contact team, based on the presentation that I saw from Drenner Group a while back, to not take their offer to do that piecemeal part here in the middle of the group that had like multifamily properties in the middle of it and zigged and zagged. But since they are having to dedicate parkland, since they're developing this whole block, selfishly for safe, I'd say, look, we could just, why not push it over here over to Lancaster, and then that way these Safe Alliance folks would have a really nice little pocket park to stay in. But of course, that's your prerogative. And then also I wanted to point out that 5113 right now is basically all concrete. And I think I see somebody online who lives next door, and so I want to talk a little bit about flooding concerns. So right now, all of these lots flow downhill from Lancaster Court to the adjoining properties. 5113 is all concrete. The other ones are not that much better. They're actually in a what you call it, code non-compliant development of that property under current zoning. And so what will happen when these lots get redeveloped is, unlike now, there will actually need to be under the upcoming city regulations that are being adopted, when these lots get redeveloped, they will not be allowed to flow any more water onto the property there to the east than a undeveloped version of the property would do. So that means that there will be a rainwater capture system that will be installed along along this fence line here to prevent that downslope flow. So the flow of water to the adjoining properties, even though there will be more impervious cover, right now there is no stormwater detention system there whatsoever. There will need to be one installed. So the runoff should actually be substantially reduced under the redevelopment of the property. And I can talk more about that if there are questions. And then again, 5107 and 5109, it's kind of part of this swap and redevelopment. The development of the Safe Alliance Place is only possible for us to build a new office to work out of. We will continue to be a Windsor Park business, and we'll stay in Windsor Park. And that is where we plan to stay. And so what we're asking for is for the redesignation of the 5113 and 5115 to mixed use, and then for the 5107 to 5115 Lancaster Court, the entirety of it from neighborhood office and multifamily 3 to CSV, which would enable us to go up to 60 feet of height on those 3 lots. So that is the entirety of the presentation. I will leave the presentation up just on the anticipation that we might need to refer to it, and I'll make myself available for questions.
Thank you, Connor. This is Mark Walters with the Housing and Planning Department, and I'll be facilitating this evening's discussion. And as Maureen said earlier, just raise your hand, and after a few raised hands, we'll circle back to those folks who called in, and I will call on them by calling out the last 4 digits of their phone number. And we have a question from Jane Parker. Jane, please ask your question.
Yeah. So is it still the plan for there to be 95% impervious cover?
That's what's necessary to achieve the units that Safe wants to put there.
Have you modified the drainage plan since our last meeting? Because I don't remember hearing you mention anything about that at the other meeting. That is our biggest concern, because if it is 95% impervious cover and there isn't adequate drainage, then that puts our properties at serious risk of floodings due to our proximity at Tannehill Creek. So is that a change from the previous meeting?
It is a change and expansion in my understanding. I went back and consulted with our civil engineers and then the regulations on watershed development. And unlike single family, all commercial development has to have a drainage plan. Currently, the standard is that it cannot increase the amount of runoff, and you have to have modeling facilities that show that it will not do that. City Council is right now pushing towards adopting a regulation that would actually establish a greenfield standard, such as that the runoff would be no more than from if it was a totally undeveloped lot. It's not a huge comfort for us in this part of town because that clay gets saturated pretty quickly and runs off. But at the very least, we will not be legally allowed to increase the amount of runoff at all, and actually will need to decrease because as I said, I can't tell if it was illegal or poured prior to the zoning, but 5113 is not currently legal in terms of the amount of concrete that they have there on site. And so we'd have to reduce that down to the legally permitted level of impervious cover. And then if city council moves to adopt in the next several weeks the greenfield standard, then we'd be required to reduce it even further. So the short answer there is that legally we're not able to increase the amount of runoff, and will likely need to decrease it substantially.
How many stories is this development going to be? I know you
The
said
SAFE project.
what does that translate to in terms of stories?
Yeah, the SAFE project is going to be what we call 4.5 stories. There'll be a kind of kind of mechanical and stairwell up at the top, like the elevator bay. It's 100% accessible building, so the elevators need a little pop out at the top.
Mm-hmm. And then where's the parking going to be?
The parking is going to be underneath about half of the building.
So they're going to build an underground parking garage?
No, it'll be a parking deck. So it'll be disguised from the street front by the offices. So the first floor of the building is basically street front kind of support services and entrance, and then kind of hidden behind there and hidden behind walls is the parking.
Adjacent to our property. So we're going to be living next to a big concrete parking garage. Do y'all plan to replace any of the trees that were cut down before this plan was even approved?
There is currently, we have a landscaping plan that is looking at putting street trees all along Lancaster and 52nd.
Oh, did it start? And where is the egress and ingress for the business?
On Lancaster.
Oh, because last time you told me it was 52nd Street. So that's another change, I guess, that's been made since then. Is that right?
I think that's maybe the only change, yeah.
Okay. So I'm guessing, you presented yourself as a proponent of affordable housing at the previous meeting. I just wonder, how you justify, planning to tear down 5 homes that were affordable housing. And in addition, those homes were bought at hugely inflated prices, so that the homes that are adjacent to that now have inflated tax rates. So what we did have affordable housing, but it's probably not going to be that moving forward. So just wondered, what comments you have about that, how you feel about that.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. This is 100% affordable housing for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. This is not the several hundred market rate apartment units that are forecast to go across the street. It is not like the couple of hundred market rate apartments that are currently being built on 51st. This is a 100% affordable, nonprofit owned and operated project. Safe Alliance is the owner and operator of the project. It's pretty clear cut. So while we are losing 4 homes that are there now, of which one is currently occupied, we will be gaining 60 units for single parents and parents with families who are fleeing those situations.
But that's 1/3 of the project, correct?
That is 2/3 of the project.
Okay. What's the other third?
The other third is to replace the office building that we had to trade to get the land to build the affordable housing on across the street.
Yeah, so apparently 5113 didn't want to sell, so they traded with the civil 2, so they're just going to swap places.
Okay.
So would you agree that the homes on Lancaster were purchased at, really exaggerated prices?
I mean, I'm not aware of
like $800,000 for a 650 square foot home. And I mean, that's making all of our taxes go up. So it's making what we had, which were affordable homes, potentially unaffordable for some people. So, I mean, what are your comments to that?
I would say that just like everybody else in Austin, they weren't willing to sell to us at below market, even though we told them it was affordable housing.
I'm not talking
Well,
about
yeah,
at
we're talking
market.
about
I'm
at
talking
market.
about really inflated, like $800,000 for, I mean, I don't know what the 5105 or 5107 sold for, but it was $650,000 or something close to that. I mean, that's $1,000 per square foot. So, I mean, I know there is this attitude among many developers in Austin that Austin is growing, so get out of the way. But, you know, for those of us who have lived in Austin our whole lives and you know, have been gentrified out of almost every neighborhood in Austin, I personally thought I finally had a hold on something that would be affordable. And now that those homes were sold at ridiculously inflated prices, that's making all of our homes, you know, all of our taxes go up. So,
Right.
you know, we're not really happy about it. We're not happy about y'all coming in and cutting down all of the trees. We're not really thrilled about living next door to a parking garage. It's, you know,
Sure.
and I know
So
my personal feelings don't matter to anyone, but I'm just putting it out there because in hopes that, you know, I don't know, might make some difference, but
right. So
it's pretty infuriating.
I mean, I want to be clear that the properties are currently zoned for 40-foot tall apartment buildings and 40-foot tall office buildings. So while we are seeking an increase in the entitlements there, it's not a wholesale change from single family. That's the way this land has been zoned since the contact team adopted the neighborhood plan back in, I think, 2009. And I think prior to that, even the zoning was in place. So while, I mean, look, you know, I was born and raised in Austin. I was gentrified out of North University neighborhood. You know, I understand it. We couldn't buy the lots below market value. They wouldn't sell them to us below market value. I don't know what records you're consulting, but legally we are not allowed to pay more than the appraised value. So the most recent sale, the sale at which we passed them along to Safe Alliance, is at the appraised market value, not above market value. That's by state law. And it's for 100% affordable housing. I mean, that's, you know, there are luxury apartments going up all up and down 51st Street. This isn't one of them.
Right. No, but I think that they were purchased at extremely high inflated prices, not market value. So I think we disagree on that. But I mean, is 1,000 square foot, $1,000 per square foot normal for Austin? I don't think so. Not even for Austin. So, and I feel like it's a strategy to make us, you know, who are adjacent to this project feel like we have to sell out because we can't afford it. And I know that one of our residents has in fact been approached by the developers, by you guys, wanting to buy their unit and buy them something comparable in the area, you know, offering some kind of sweetheart deal. And then that just creates a domino effect. And I can tell you that I'm not speaking for all of the residents, but most of the ones that I've talked to were dead set on staying there. We do not want to sell. So anyway, I'll let somebody else comment. I don't mean to dominate the conversation.
Connie Alexander, you're next. Could you please unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, sorry, I have a little bit of food in my mouth. Hi everyone, I'm Connie Alexander. I'm one of the homeowners of In Verandas at 52nd Street. I'm also very new to this topic, so I might be asking some dumb questions, but I was more curious about the history of this proposal in the first place. So first question is, Safe Alliance's properties in the past, how have the development of those properties impacted crime rates before and after development?
I mean, so what we have is we have Rathgeber Village down in Miller, and then we have Grove Place over at down by Riverside. It's difficult to isolate the impact of those, but I think that most perpetrators of crime are men. This, while it allows men, it's going to be 95% women, and 80% of those are going to be parents. And then it's a 100% secured entry site. So, I can't tell you anything definitively, but, if you had affordable housing that was set up to be as least impactful as possible on any increase in crime, this would be it. I work very late nights in the office across the street. I'm sure you're aware of a lot of the activity that goes on Lancaster and 52nd pretty constantly. I would say that this is probably going to end up in a net reduction.
Can I see, if you don't have it here, I think the city publishes crime data actually. Can we see data on impact, like data wise, before and after, in as granular as you can find? And if that granularity is Windsor Park in general, that's fine. But I do want to see like before and after impact on crime, because yes, the residents will be women and children mostly, but their perpetrators of violence were most likely men. And if the address of this safe house is public, one of my best friends works at a transition house, and she has men like trying to stalk their addresses all the time, and makes the entire neighborhood very, very worried about their own safety. And I already don't feel comfortable walking my dog down 52nd Street. I walk her on 51st Street. So I'm just kind of terrified of the impact of our personal safety.
Yeah, all I can tell you is that it's a secured site with a single secure point of entry that, anyone loitering, is immediately trespassed. But I can tell you, I run past the Rathgeber Village all the time. I've never seen anybody hanging out outside. All the times I've visited Grove Place, I've never seen anybody hanging out outside. I think compared to what happens in the neighborhood now, this is going to be probably one of the more reputable uses. And unfortunately, I don't have that kind of crime data. I just know what I see when I travel around the other uses. And this is definitely not transitional housing like at all, right? Like this is permanent supportive housing. These are permanent homes, apartments for victims of violence.
Yeah, I'm still curious to see the data though. So I found a site from the city, like a crime viewer map. So if they have current data, they probably have historical data. So I'd like to see the impact of crime on Safe Alliance housing in historical locations, if possible.
I don't have access to that data. I used to do criminal justice policy for the state. I can tell you that there's no amount of linear regression that you're going to be able to run that's going to be able to see what the impact of a single development is going to be on the crime rate.
It's not linear regression. You just take a point in time, like take a look at the crime rate in the past year before building was built in, time, 2020, 2019, doesn't matter. Take a look at the crime rate the year after, see if there's any nationwide, region-wide trends you have to adjust for, and then just see if there's a difference. That's an AA test.
I don't have that data. All I have is what Safe Alliance tells me, which is that they don't have problems outside their developments.
I know, but I don't trust statements like that until I see data.
I'm sorry, I don't have that data.
Yeah, from an outside source, not just from site itself, from an objective source.
Right. So I sent you a resource in our conversation. It's I don't know if it's helpful to see historicals. I don't know how to use the tool very well, but if in a future meeting we can see before and after impact of crime rate, that would be very helpful.
Well, thank you. Next person who has their hand raised is Jamie Nielsen. If you could unmute and ask your question, please.
Yes, thank you. I've got this is Jamie. I've got two questions. One is more of a comment. I noticed on a lot of the diagrams that were presented, Mr. Kenny, that you indeed have 5105 as not being part of the application, and that's my property. But if you could note that the illustrations, most of them still show when you have a map that property is included in the application. I'd appreciate if you could true up the diagrams to match the captions that show that it is 5107 through 5115 and not 5105 through 5115.
So 5105 is not part of the project now?
Absolutely not.
Okay. And, okay.
Yeah, as that is, yeah, shown repeatedly in the presentation. Yeah,
It
but
is shown
some of the diagrams are old, and we'll make sure to update those.
And the second issue goes to parking. Some of the, I noticed on you filed a 9% tax credit, housing tax credit application with the state back in February that describes the Lancaster. And it shows that there's going to be 60 units in that building. Is that right?
That's correct.
But I also look, when I look at the parking aspect of the application, it says there's a total of 5 parking spaces provided to serve those 60 units. That seems
So these are
awfully insufficient for 60 units. So you can't assume that the majority of those folks will not have a need for car spaces.
So actually that's based on demographic data. I mean, these are individuals who are very much at the bottom of the poverty scale and don't have vehicles. And this is based on demographic information from other Safe Alliance projects.
Is that demographic information talk about vehicles per number of people? Or is it just,
I mean,
or are you making
like
an assumption?
We compared it directly to projects that serve the same population and looked at the amount of parking that they actually utilize. And that was about the ratio is a 1-to-12 ratio. And that's one of the reasons why they actually picked this site is that it has such good access to buses.
My concern is that you're going to have visitors that, regardless of what comparison that was made, it seems to me that it's assuming that these folks, only one person out of 12 will have need for parking, I think is very low. And as you know, Lancaster Court is extremely choked with parking. When there's actual buildings on the street, there's a lot of people that park on the street. Civilitude has made a lot of use of street parking. So you know that there's a lot of cramped parking. Before those buildings were torn down on Lancaster Court, Civilitude was parking all along the street. So you know parking's tough. And then these residents of the Lancaster will have visitors and folks visiting them, and they will need cars.
Yeah.
So I think to have 60 units and then say we only need 5 parking spaces is ridiculous.
Right. So I don't know what your experience is, but based on Safe Alliance's experiences with the directly comparable population, that's what they said they needed.
I understand that's what they said that they needed, but I've been at Lancaster Court for 10 years. And I was there when all the houses were still there. And when Civilitude came in, you folks didn't have enough parking.
Right.
Now you're going to land and crank up 60 more units of habitation. And that is totally insufficient for a street as small and crowded as Lancaster Court.
Yep.
That's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Good point.
Okay. Thank you. Martin, you have your hand raised. Would you please unmute and ask your question or make your comment?
My name is Martin Woon. I'm one of the residents over at 52nd on Verandas. I just wonder, after that, assume that this project is a go, and we have this Safe Alliance building built up, and I wonder what kind of ongoing conversation we may have with the administration, with Safe Alliance, so far as any further developments they may do to the physical construction of the building, like what kind of spirit of community they will have to, that they may have or may not have with other neighboring buildings. So I wonder if there might be some sort of a committee that will foster that kind of neighborhood spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point. I can, if y'all have contact information, I can connect you directly with Safe Alliance. I will say that my understanding is that these folks have experienced some pretty significant trauma and seem to largely kind of keep to themselves.
I guess I'm just afraid that, whatever further construction they may build would be just siloed and would not be shared with a neighbor, like the Verandas, like every decision that they make after Safe Alliance has been established, will be on their own, like they make their own decisions without the care of the neighbors, without getting our input. It's like, for example, the trees being cut down, we were not consulted for our input at all. So it was like a,
Yeah, that was just,
there's no spirit of neighborhood, in other words. And Austin was not established. I think just not an Austin spirit at all. So I would like to have see ongoing conversations and that kind of alliance with the neighborhoods. You know, not just a one-person decision. So I want that kind of guarantee.
Well, look, I'm not going to blow smoke and tell you that there's some sort of a legal guarantee that can be written on that. It's not possible, but, or if you'd prefer, I can blow smoke, but I think, you know, what the more concrete thing I can tell you is that there is a tenant organ, what do they call it? There's a committee, a tenant committee. Essentially, it's a neighborhood association or a homeowners association for the residents there, and I think one of the good things to do could be just to establish a meeting between some of the folks at Safe and some of the folks on the verandas. But I don't want to make too many promises there because, again, you know, some of these folks have experienced some very serious trauma, and just they're often, you know, just not you know, they're not in a situation necessarily, at least at the beginning, when, you know, they're really kind of engaging with folks outside of the buildings very much. And so I just want to be sensitive to that.
I think, thank you. I think you just said that you cannot make too many promises, but then it is my home and I want that kind of guarantee. And I think what is more important is the foster ongoing conversations and relationship and alliance, not just a one time after developing the whole building and just wash his hands and just check out and leaving the entire running of the facility to another person who doesn't care about fostering the spirit of neighborhood. So that's my concern. I'm going to rest
Yeah,
my
I just want to, I want to stress again that this is not, you know, an outside owner investor. This is nonprofit owned and operated, you know, mission driven nonprofit.
Okay. Before we go to you, Jane, for your next question, there's a couple phone calls. So does the person who has the phone number ending in 1358, do you have any questions or have any comments to make?
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, this is Will Heathcott. I live on 52nd Street. I'm sorry, I jumped in late. I misunderstood the meeting time. This is Connor Kinney on the other end. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you for taking your time to meet and share with us. It sounds like you've already shared that you've done this in the past. I'm sorry that to double down on questions may have already been answered. But have you done something of a similar just structure as to what you propose here on Lancaster?
Safe has done similar projects to this. This is one of 7 nonprofit homelessness response projects that we have operating in the city of Boston, or that we're building in the city of Boston right now. This one's a little bit unique in that it is, you know, 92% of the current on the street population is single person households. This project is unique in that it is about half of the households here will have children. It's typically young children, and it will be permanent housing as well. It's not transitional housing, so it's a little bit different. I frankly, you know, think, you know, as a Windsor Park resident, that we got kind of the pick of the litter. Safe has been operating for, I think, 60 years now. They have several other developments in Austin. You can walk down and look at the one down at Rathkeeper Village and Miller.
Okay.
Okay.
60 units. Okay. So
go ahead.
You know, okay. So there is. You said you're currently in the process of 7 other projects. Are any of them operational at this point, or?
None of the homelessness response projects are yet completed. We've done other multifamily developments here in Austin.
Okay. Okay. Well, you know, when
This is a new one for us. It's a joint collaboration between us and these 7 different Austin nonprofits. So it's a little bit new for us. It's a little bit new for them, but it's in response to the crisis that we have. This one's a little bit unique in that it is trying to intercept people before homelessness, because these are typically women who don't have the income level to achieve housing as they flee their homes, and so they would otherwise be going into shelters or onto the streets. So this is not a project unlike our other 7 where they're coming off the street. This is intercepting them before they have to live on the street.
Could you just maybe explain a little bit, as when you said permanent housing, like, I guess what does that look like for these people that will be living there over the next, 1, 2, and possibly 3 years? What
Yeah.
what is permanent housing?
Yeah, sure. So what it means is that it's not just 1, 2, and 3 years, that we often expect these folks to be here for a decade or more. That's the pattern at other Safe Alliance projects. So again, they're coming off of what's called the coordinated entry list, and Safe Alliance being especially equipped to deal with people who have this kind of trauma. It means that there are on-site counselors and social workers, and as well as the 24/7 desk coverage. The desk coverage is honestly to keep anybody from coming in. It's not to keep an eye on the residents, who are by and large just really not a problem. So there's on-site support services, but the staffing ratio actually comes down over time as the residents stabilize, and really the most intensive services are there in the first few years as people come in, but after they've been there for a couple of years, they're pretty much just living their life like a normal apartment, with the exception that that access to the site is pretty strictly controlled.
Okay.
Did you get your questions answered, sir?
Yeah. Okay. Can I ask 2 quickly?
Sure.
I'll try to be quick. Are there any, as this, it sounds like, yes, you've described kind of how unique this is for y'all, and of course for our neighborhood as well. Are there any case studies or anything that has kind of guided some of the choices y'all have made that we could also have some visibility on?
I can get in touch with the architects who are HUR architects who practice trauma-informed design that informs the architecture of the site. And then the operation of the site is just influenced by the couple of decades that SAFE has running, especially the Grove Place apartments down at Grove and Riverside.
Okay. SAFE. I got you. Okay, now my last question is just, I think that I did just see that some of the parking, of course, and I caught the back end of a comment, but just that the parking, parking is different, and furthermore, like some of the lot lines, the easements, and the green space, and I guess I think my question was just that why is the requirement, the typical requirement, maybe for a typical multifamily place with X amount of units, why is that ratio? I guess just it's not considered or enforced in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's because these are women who are fleeing with no assets, and they don't really have the income to support a vehicle. They're pretty much public transportation bound, and that's just been the experience of SAFE at other sites.
So even even if it is 2 to 3, and possibly, like to your comment, like maybe permanent, you don't anticipate them stabilizing to a point and then maybe acquiring some asset?
SAFE tells us that typically their experience is that once these folks are stabilized, that most of them just kind of naturally transition out into other housing. That the level of kind of, I don't want to say surveillance, but just kind of, to enter and exit, you walk past a 24/7 front desk. There's on-site social workers. Once people don't need that kind of support anymore, most of them transfer out. It usually takes a couple of years, but it's different for everybody, but that's been their experience. So when we started it, we said, okay, well, parking is very expensive. We're trying to get you your 60 units that you need. How much do you need? And that's how much they told us. So.
Okay, for the next phone call, then we'll go to the folks with their hands raised. Did you get your questions answered?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll step aside.
Okay.
Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
For the person with the last 4 digits of 3442, do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, thank you so much. This is Rodney, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to have to hop up here really quickly. So we might can cover this at the meeting on June 21st. But I was just wondering what are the kind of the proposed or expected uses for the CS zoning?
So we would be very happy to entertain a restriction on the use there for just multifamily on the 3 lots south and just office on the 2 lots. I'm sorry, the 3 lots to the north, and then just office on the 2 lots to the south.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be something I'd like for us to have some follow-up conversations on, Connor. So I appreciate that.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I mean, this is not a speculative play. These lots are not for resale. This is going to be the project that goes in here, if approved.
Okay. Now we're going to go to the folks with their hands raised. There's 3. I'll start off with Jane Parker. Jane, could you ask your question, please?
Yeah, no, I'll be brief. I just, originally the plan was to have Pato's Tacos not on the corner of 52nd and Lancaster, but closer to 51st Street. Is that still part of the plan, or has that been nixed?
No, I mean, you would talk about prices on land. Paco's and some of the other property owners there wanted a price that was not sustainable for this project. So we weren't able to do it. So the restriction in the space has meant that we weren't able to do kind of more of the mixed use and with residences that we were hoping to do.
Right. So I just want to be clear, because you have been portraying this project as a nonprofit, but let's be clear, somebody is profiting from this. The developers are profiting from this, right?
So we are just a fee developer. I mean, I collect a salary. I mean, we get paid for what we do. But unlike most other affordable housing projects that retain equity investors and have a payment going to a landlord every year, we're just, same as the general contractor. We're collecting a fee and then we're done, and Safe Alliance owns it, free and clear.
Okay. Connie had some questions, and I just want to make sure that she's going to be able to ask them. Connie, are you still here?
First, I'm going to go to Steele and then Connie.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was going to ask her questions if she was not here, but okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
She said she could be here for another 20 minutes or so.
Right.
Okay. So Jane, did you get that part of your questions answered?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Steele, could you unmute and ask your question?
Well, it kind of borders on what Will was saying, but you're talking about this thing being long-term. People are going to prosper. I mean, and the idea that people aren't going to have vehicles or 5 parking spaces for 60 units is frankly ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not real.
I mean, it's just that's crazy. And especially, I mean, if Austin housing continues the way, people won't move out of there if it's affordable. Who would move out of affordable housing? That's absurd.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what experience you have with supportive housing developments, but in the experience of Safe, that's how much parking they use at their other developments.
So can you just clarify, is the intent that they are going to be there for a decade, or is the intent that they will be there for 2 years and then move on? Because you said both.
The intent is that they are welcome to stay as long as they feel like they need to.
And,
The
and
housing is offered without regard to ability to pay. So there's no, the rent that is charged is 30% of their income, regardless of what that income is.
Right, and with Austin raising prices like mad, I mean, then why would you move out? I mean, maybe in the past, yeah, but now what's affordable out there? Nothing. So I mean, if it's gonna be long-term housing, there has to be long-term solutions.
So are you guys experiencing a parking shortage there at the verandas? Is that why folks are concerned that y'all are underparked?
No,
Well,
but
people
no,
people who don't live there do park there because it's so accessible. It's just really easy to just whip in there and park. So yeah. I mean, we have enough parking now, but we probably won't.
Okay, I guess I'll go to the Steel, or you're.
Yeah, we're
have other
together.
Comments,
Yeah.
questions? Okay.
I mean, the question really wasn't answered. And so I understand the intent, but Connor has said multiple different variations that they would be there for a decade, and then also said that typically they move on within 2 years. So again, it just creates a transitional environment, no community, and it's just a little concerning. Doesn't seem like the question was answered. Doesn't seem like there's an answer to the question, but.
So let me answer very clearly. The folks stay at this place is not time limited. They're able to stay as long as they feel welcome. The typical range of stay ranges from 2 to 10 years, and it depends on the individual. That information is current based on the current use at Grove Place, which is a pretty much identical development to this one. But we just kind of have to forecast and give a range. People don't get a 2-year lease or a 3-year lease. I don't know what the average tenancy at the verandas is, but I guess it's maybe not that much different.
Most of those are owned.
Varies.
What?
The verandas are what, 90% owned. We don't,
Yeah.
it's not a rental property.
No. No. Right. It's it's owner occupied for the most part, probably 95% owner occupied.
Okay, well, I'll go on to the next person with their hands up. Connie, could you unmute and ask your questions, please?
Yeah, sure. So a few in the chat. Let me scroll up to the first one. I guess I hope I didn't miss. I apologize if I missed this, but I wanted to know more about the background of SAFE wanting to develop a location in the first place. Do they have a huge demand, or are they relocating a current location?
This is unmet demand. This is folks are currently staying in shelters because there's not enough beds in permanent supportive housing. So they have a huge unmet demand, and this will be drawing initially from a population of folks who are forced to stay in shelters, prioritizing families with kids because they want to get them out of the shelters as quickly as possible. But because of the pretty dramatic expansion of homelessness housing happening in Austin over the next 3 years, eventually it's going to be more of what we call rapid rehousing, which is when intercepting folks before they, as they lose their current housing, before they're forced into a shelter or on the streets or into an unsafe situation.
Okay, gotcha. The second question is, I saw on Capital A's website you're actually part of Civilitude. Isn't there a conflict of interest here?
I'm not sure how our interests would be in conflict.
Well, it sounds like part of the proposal benefits Civilitude, but you're also representing a client.
So we are the developer for SAFE, but in order to get the land for SAFE, we had to swap the land. We tried to just buy the lot at 5113, but the owner there would not sell it and would only swap for the land that's underneath our office. So we have to build a new office. And we wanted to stay in the neighborhood. Several of us live in Windsor Park.
So was this project instigated by Civilitude needing to get change office space, or Safe Alliance needing more space? Because it seems like there's two separate demands, like needs here.
They're part and parcel of the same. The project started off with SAFE. We needed 5113 for the SAFE project. We couldn't get 5113 unless we traded for 5110, where we're currently located. So we have to build a new office to replace the lot at 5110. So the whole SAFE project hinges on us being able to get a new space to replace the one that we had to trade away to make the SAFE project work.
Sorry, SAFE. Okay, so I think I need this like in a written form because I'm a little bit confused by all the addresses and what's being swapped. Like I don't follow chess pieces very well. Like maybe there's a slide that's a good summary that I can read afterwards. Like who needs what, who currently owns what, and why. I'm kind of it's strange that there's like two different parties that have same needs for the same area at the same time, and you're representing both. Okay, that's more of a comment.
Yeah, don't know what to tell you there.
Yeah. And then more for SAFE. So if you don't have this, I can reach out to them directly because I mean, for something as big as this impacting my neighborhood, I feel like I want to do my own due diligence too. But what are their stats or progress on rehabilitating residents or whatever phrase is better for that, like getting them reintegrated and fully independent?
I will get that information from them and pass it along to city staff so they can send it to everyone who RSVP'd here,
Okay.
as well as to the contact team.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think I agree with what Steele said that.
and then also make sure that we bring then a couple of the clinician staff to the meeting on the 21st so they can speak more directly to that.
Yeah, I agree with Steele in the sense that I think if you offer someone affordable housing in Austin today, and you don't have to increase the rent, and where the rent is a specific percentage of your income, they have basically no incentive to save up and become fully independent. Unlike other, I don't think transition housing is the right word, but like other housing, shelters, I'm not sure what the right word is, but other places have, I think, much better designed systems to get people fully independent. Like, for example, like a time limit. We're going to support you for 1 year, 2 years. Beyond that, you have to be on your own unless like these exceptions happen. Or, like, I'm not sure if wage garnishing is a thing in this thing, but like in a lot of educational programs, the colleges or schools are incentivized to make the students as successful as possible and their incentives are aligned through wage garnishing. Like the higher of a salary you can get in the future, that means the higher we get our return on investment, and you don't have to pay tuition for that. I just don't know if that model is common in transition housing, but I'm just visualizing like the kind of residents that will live here, like long term, taking advantage of this situation, and I feel like it's not going to be pretty. Then I might be just very stereotyping really hard, but I feel like that's just my perspective there. And then number 4,
I'll bring Safe Alliance to the meeting on the 21st so that they can speak to some of this. I'll just say that they're one of the most longest established, respected, effective nonprofits in town. I encourage you to read up on them.
I'm reading their annual report.
I'm reading
their annual report as we speak, and they have no stats on rehabilitation and like reintegration. So, like you said, they're effective. I do want to see data proving that they're effective. And now I'm going to read through their financial report just to see if there's any stats on that.
I think they measure it less in terms of who transitions out into other housing and more on how many women's lives they've saved.
But then that's just completely correlated with like how much space they have, right?
We custom designed this building for them according to what they said their needs were. So I'll bring them to that they can speak more directly to that. But we're just working for them on this one.
Right. And then my 4th question is more of a project management question. Is there a place where we can see the latest proposals and decks like this? Because I think based on the reaction of a few speakers on the call, it seems like there were a few surprises on changes that happened versus the previous presentation.
There will be, I mean, if any, I will send the deck to the city staff. So maybe the email address that was on the notice, perhaps that might be a good place to request it, and they can send it along. And then I'll put my own contact in the chat here, and I'm happy to send information and respond to other questions.
Is there a way where we could access it asynchronously? Otherwise, you will probably get dozens of email asking the same question, like, hey, can I get the latest deck? Can I get the latest deck? And is there like a website, Google Drive folder, Dropbox folder where we can access it, like the latest versions?
I don't have anything set up, but I'm happy to respond to emails.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just check in regularly then. Okay. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks. Maureen, I need to step away real quick and I should be back before you get, but could you moderate after Hector asks his questions and unmutes and asks his question, and I'll let you know I'm back in the chat, okay?
Okay, sure, no problem.
Be right back. So Hector, would you unmute and ask your question or make your comment, please?
Hi, yes, I live on Broadmoor, so we live on Broadmoor, kind of just on the other side of the creek. And I just wanted to put the comment out there that, with Austin's, everybody knows how unaffordable it's getting. The problem's only going to get worse. I think we just need to kind of help be, everybody just needs to be brave and really be forward thinking and kind of try to help this kind of project, in ways that we can, and be supportive. Ask questions, and kind of think through issues, but the housing issues in Austin are not going to get better. We're lucky. We bought our house in 2014. We moved from the Bay Area, and we saw what happened there over 12 years of living there. It's only going to get worse. And so I know there's a lot of fear and concerns about the types of people that might live here and the types of, impact to the neighborhood. And on that front, I can only say from my personal experience, my family did not have a car until I was 17. We grew up on the west side of San Antonio, and because San Antonio was a more affordable place to live at the time, my mom, who was a single mom, could raise 2 kids, take care of her mom, and you work 2 jobs to kind of put it all together without a car. So it is possible to do that. And this particular corner of the city will have pretty decent transportation access and access to all of the things that are in Mueller jobs and transportation. So it's not a bad location for that. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents in that. I know there's a lot of fear about the types of people. I don't know what those fears are. Other people can say more directly what they're afraid of, but the housing crisis in Austin is real, and it's only getting worse. So I just wanted to put a comment out there. And then from what I've been following about this project, Civilitude, or I think Connor, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys getting involved in the swap, to me, that's kind of more of your commitment to make this project happen. It seems like, because you needed that extra, or because that particular one particular tenant or one particular owner needed to move to a different location. So it seems to me like that's more of an indication of how committed you guys are to helping this project, as opposed to something shady, just from my own perspective of watching this happen. So again, you can clarify more for folks about what the Civilitude's involvement is, but those are my 2 cents. I know our schools have homeless kids or kids without houses that go there. So the more we can help that community, I think the better. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Oh, Katie Trauber, could you unmute and ask your question or make your comment?
Yeah, thanks so much. And I apologize, y'all, that I was late. I'm getting over COVID, so I'm a little discombobulated. I think I hate to harp on the parking. I'm really hopeful that that the representatives from Safe Alliance can maybe help clarify this a little bit more on the 21st. But if that parking, oh, you're sharing your screen.
Yeah, we saw you when you were Googling me and looking for me on Facebook
you're
as well.
Google me.
Sorry, I like to
really,
see who
No,
people are.
you are sharing your screen.
I'm happy to share it more.
It seems to me that with the staffing that's on site as well, if they're going to be using some of those 5 parking spaces, that might become a little tight. And just based on how parking is on Lancaster right now, people already park up and down the street there, and it gets pretty tight. So it feels kind of precarious sometimes, especially at that intersection at 52nd and Lancaster, coming around those corners, especially if people are parked up close to the intersection. So my concern would just be like congestion and safety in that area. So, but again, you know, there is good public transportation along 51st Street. So, if Safe has, you know, information, stats, whatever on the population of people that they'll be serving, and they say, you know, we are confident in this, then okay, but maybe it would be good to have them speak to that. And I also think it would be good to have them come talk to us in general about the clients that they serve. I'm familiar with Safe Alliance, and it's you know, as far as I know, a really great organization. But it would be good to have them available to, you know, talk with us about their long-term vision for the space and how they envision utilizing that area going forward.
Yeah, we'll definitely bring them along, a whole crew of them on the 21st. They're very excited about this project, so I'm sure they'll be happy to talk about it.
We're about 15 minutes to the end of the meeting, so we have a few more people who have questions. So Jane, would you ask your questions?
Okay, well, it's not so much of a question.
I'll comment.
Yeah, I used to live on Grove Boulevard, and I am familiar with Safe Place on Grove. And I know that they do have a really tall, probably a 10-foot tall fence around it. So that tells me that, you know, pretty high security is needed. So I know I don't think a big fence around this building is in the plans, nor would I really want that, but I just would like to say that it is important that there is adequate security. And also, I'm just curious why you were Googling me, what my personal life has to do with this meeting, Connor.
Sorry, I just like to have faces to names.
My face is here.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't have that on.
That was not my correct Facebook page that you found.
I didn't see it. Oh, I didn't.
But yes, I do Department of Physics, and I'm just curious why you were doing that. That seems really inappropriate.
Sure. Sorry, I just like to see who I'm talking to, and I didn't have I was looking at that and not the Zoom chat screen, obviously, so I didn't see people's faces.
You didn't know you were sharing your screen still, yeah.
So, okay, I guess Hector, could you unmute and ask your question or make your comment, please?
I'm sorry, I already made my comment. I'll lower my hand. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, does anybody else have any? We have 12 minutes or so for the rest of the meeting. Does anybody else have any questions or comments they want to make?
Yeah, it's creepy Googling people. That's really creepy, dude. Yeah, that's really creepy.
I mean, I Google people too.
Okay. Besides Googling, did any questions about the project or any concerns they want to that haven't been mentioned thus far?
I just have a quick question. This is Steele. is there any occupancy or max occupancy per unit limits, max occupancy limits per unit?
Yeah, the studios are meant for one person, and then we have ones and twos. And because of the nature of the tenants here, that means typically a single parent with one or two children. And I'll put my own link in the chat if anybody wants to check me out.
And so, sorry, per like, is there a ratio, I mean, how many studios and how many ones and twos. So what's the max occupancy of the entire 60 unit building?
So, I mean, it's going to be 60 adults, and then probably, I mean, that's not going to be the max occupancy, but just based on who we have here, like there's not going to be more than one adult in a unit, overwhelmingly is the case. And then, I'd say we have, I want to say maybe 20 or so kids.
So there aren't any sort of regulations or max occupancy items that you have dictated, is there anything stopping one of the units from having 5 or 7 kids?
That's, I guess I hadn't contemplated that. There are occupancy limits in Austin. I want to say that just the building code regulates it at maybe 4 people per bedroom, but obviously that's not what you see almost anywhere. And then Austin regulates it so that no more than, I believe it's 4 unrelated adults, but obviously that's not, I mean, I guess there's going to be a max occupancy on the building. It's just, and maybe Safe Alliance can speak more to their population, but it's, just because of the nature of what we have here, it's possible that somebody's going to have a bunch of kids, but typically you're just going to see one adult in that unit.
Right. So it's just based on kind of past there and typical situations. There is no sort of regulations or in the lease or, the ownership that there can be only X amount of people. We could end up with a scenario of, 5 kids in half of the units.
I'll need to defer to Safe on the 21st there.
Okay.
And let me know if
Okay.
there are their own regulations there. Yeah, sorry.
I can bring that as a question on the 21st.
Yeah, and I had actually meant to bring them here, but I gave them the wrong date, and so they weren't prepped for this meeting. I apologize for that.
Okay. So we have 2 people with their hands up, and we have about 8 minutes. So, Katie, would you quickly ask your question, comment, so we can get to Jamie, who's next?
Yes, mine will be really quick. If I see the meetings being recorded, if I'd like, I was late. If I'd like to watch the recording, who do I email to request that?
It'll be the Speak Up Austin, and Maureen can put that slide up with the URL, but it's the Speak Up Austin page for neighborhood plan amendments. So it should be posted by midday at the latest tomorrow.
Yeah, I usually I will post it first thing tomorrow morning, and I'll put the website is also on the notice that you got in the mail, the website address, but I'll put the website link in the chat as well.
Super, thank you very much.
And so, Jamie Nielsen, could you unmute
Yes.
and ask your question?
It's real brief. It may be helpful to folks. The civilitude, or as part of the application, the civilitude or Capital A Housing, whichever entity, has filed an application with the state for a 9% housing tax credit to the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. On that application, within it, there's a lot of financial information and cost and such, but there's also the plans, the architectural plans for the Lancaster. And that's where I got my information about how many parking spaces. So I was going to cut and paste that into the chat, the link to that. So it may be helpful for folks to look through it. And also on the department's website, there are some attachments to the application, such as property appraisals that you might find helpful, but primarily perhaps just the plans for the Lancaster. I don't think anybody's that I know of has seen it.
Well, thank you. for let us know about that. So we're about 5.5, 6 minutes out. Any other questions before Maureen puts up talks about next steps and puts up contact information? If not, Maureen, do you want to share your screen and pull up the contact information and go over the next steps? I think you might be muted. Maureen, you there? You need to
So
unmute.
sorry, I
Oh, it's
forgot.
okay.
Like you said, it's not a Zoom meeting until someone forgets to unmute. So yeah, this is my contact information. So if people wanted to email me tomorrow for any follow-up, feel free to do that. I put the Speak Up Austin .org/NPA website in the chat. That's where the recording meeting will be posted tomorrow morning. The cases are scheduled for the June 28th Planning Commission hearing date and the July 28th City Council hearing date. If you wanted any comments added to staff case reports, please email those to me no later than Tuesday, June 21st at 4:30 p.m. That is when I submit my staff case report. Anything I get after that date and time, it will still be submitted to planning commissioners, but it will not be in the staff case report. It will be submitted as late backup. And that's all I have.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening and sharing your thoughts and comments. And there will be another meeting, Maureen, on the 21st. Is that another NPA meeting, or is that a meeting between the applicant and the community?
So it is a second NPA meeting to discuss this case. It was scheduled twice because the first notice that was sent was sent prior to the applicant admitting the application and adding the 2 additional lots. So the second meeting captured the additional properties from the expanded 500-foot notification boundary. So that's why we went ahead and scheduled a second meeting. So it'll essentially be the same discussion, and I think is understood from Connor, he's going to try to have some safe representatives there, but it'll be essentially the same discussion.
Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for giving us some of their time this evening. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a happy, good evening, and maybe go eat dinner now. So we'll probably see you on the 21st. Take care.
Thank you.
I'll stay on in case anybody has any last minute questions about the process.